Hey guys, welcome back to the next episode of Life, Lo Nuestro and Everything Else, a space for real conversations about life, nuestra cultura, culture, identity, and other things we don't always talk about out loud. It's your host, Ernesto. And today, I'm sitting down with a special friend of mine, Luis Arturo. Bienvenido a la conversación, Arturo. Buenas tardes, ¿cómo estás?
Hey, Ernesto. Buenas tardes. I'm good. Thank you for reaching out and for having me here on your podcast. Really excited to have that chat with you.
It's awesome, man. I'm happy you're here. I know we've known each other for a couple of years now, maybe what 2 years, probably close to it. So I'm always appreciative of people who are like minded and people who have a passion for life or for things that they do within their community, and also for people of color in our background, specifically because eres mexicano como yo, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think it's been a little bit over 2 years since we met at the I think it was at the park.
Yeah, the Greenway. Yeah.
Met each other, we chat, and then we just stay in touch after that.
Yeah. So, what I think I want to dive into today's conversation, it's going to be about seasons, the seasons of becoming, the seasons of refining, the seasons of leveling up, and then not only in a loud way, but in a grounded way, like we try to be. So, Arturo, I want to start here. So, when you look at your life right now, what seasons are you in right now?
It's a good question. I feel like I am in a phase where a lot of things in my life are shifting, career opportunities, personal goals, the way I see myself. I'm no longer 20 years old. So I feel like I am learning to trust my instincts more, make decisions with clarity and understanding what's in front of me, before I make a decision, and just pursuing projects and roles that, actually fit what I want in the future. So I will say that, overall, I am in a stage of my life of, you know, maturity, I will say, learning, you know, from what I have done in previous years to make sure that the next stage of my life is more stable and more fruitful.
Love that. It's a great answer. What kind of things, if you don't mind me asking, are you getting into that are creating those meaningful changes for you and that are gonna obviously now benefit you, in the long term?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
Yeah, what kind of things are you getting into that are creating those meaningful connections to where you feel like you're gonna set a ground stage for yourself now to when in the future is gonna be meaningful because of the things you're
Yeah.
creating?
I think that the main thing is more, surrounding myself of, a great support. I feel like, in previous years, I felt like I was just doing everything on my own, sometimes trusting and not trusting people, but now it's more like, I need to, make sure that I am open to relationships, right? And stay connected, right? Because at the end of the day, getting to know others is how you pretty much, get to a place where you want to be. So I feel like, making those connections and staying in touch with those connections. Example of that is, my relationship with you, right? We met 2 years ago, pretty briefly, I believe, but, we made that connection and it's been 2 years and here we are, sitting with each other here, having a conversation and going deeply into more personal stuff. So I think I would say that's one of the main things, right? Creating those connections and also learning new things. If that is something that I want to know more about, go and explore, read, watch videos, whatever is needed to make sure that I understand that curiosity that I have to have better clarity.
Yeah, I love that answer. I love that answer because a lot of times, people get stagnant, right? So people don't know the next thing or don't know how to figure out something out, right? And I think people like yourselves who are driven by different things, whether it's people, whether it's a future, whether it's whatever maybe that's driving you, the whatever force is pushing you to be better, right? The best version of yourself. I think it's important to have that clarity and know where you are operating from, right? Are you operating from a place of pressure or clarity, right? So based on your answer, do you feel like you're operating from a place of pressure or clarity?
I think it's more clarity. I was reading something the other day that, once you're get or pass a certain stage or age of your life, people feel like they are running out of time, and they start acting, out of pressure. So I think that I try not to be that person. I'm trying to be more, the type of person that is acting more of clarity rather than pressure. Because, if we act out of pressure, the result may be good this year, next year, right? But I think with clarity, the outcome can be, longer than a year or two, but it's going to be better than having a quick win.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think we tend to we see something, we want to jump on that boat, right? Hoping that that's the you know
Hmm.
the all thing. We want to figure it out, but at the end of the day, once you get rooted and you figure out that this may not be for me, then that clarity comes through, which is really good for people to recognize. Because, like I said, a few seconds ago, we tend to go with our heart, and sometimes, as much as we want to do that, it's not always the best thing, right?
Yeah. And I think that also it is important to take risk. And I think that's
Mhm.
part of the process. If I can give you an example, this last week, I was offered a job based on what I've been doing over the last few years. And the more I talk to my mentor and other people, I felt like it was a great opportunity, but it was not necessarily what I'm looking for. So this week I had the conversation with the person that offered me the job, and I had to decline the offer, even though it was a good offer, but again, it just didn't fit right with my long-term goals. So the risk that I took is not taking the job, right? Knowing that, I fell down for a little bit, think no, because I know the person, right? But at the end of the day, I, needed to do what is best for me and for my family. So I
Yeah.
think that taking that risk is always important, whether the outcome is, you know, good or bad.
Yeah, that's great because you're absolutely right. So the risk, most people think risk are negative thing, right? I'm losing something to gain something, right? But at the end of the day, in this instance, like you're talking about, you gave up an opportunity that could have been fruitful for you, but it didn't align with your values and what you wanted for your future. And that's it's always good to pause and see what stage, what season of your life you are in, and which season you want to transition to, because every step we take has a step towards the next thing, right? You can't
Yeah.
just sit on one thing and hope that this step is going to lead you to the next one. It might, but unless you take a forward or backward step to either clarity or forward movement, you're not going to know the answer. And so being, grounding yourself and knowing what you want to do is really important. I'm really happy that you're able to do that for yourself.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it took years, right, to get to this place. Like I said, going back to the first question that you asked, right? What a stage I'm in, and it's in that stage where I'm making sure that I'm giving more thought to what I want to do, uh, and where before my some of my decisions were made of like based on the people that were around me, and I was making those decisions to make them happy rather than what makes me happy. So now it's more like, even though I know the guy, I know the group, it's gonna be hard for me to jump into something that is not gonna be, make me happy. So I think that's making sure that you know what makes you happy, right? And that you're making the decision for yourself and not for others, is gonna be long term beneficial for yourself.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So everything you say and resonates with me. And you obviously you didn't just grow into this version of yourself, right? So there's history there. There's time. There's failures. There's all the different things that lead you to where you are now. There's also culture there because culture, although it's part of who we are as human beings, and depending where we're from, culture, depending on where you're from, also has a way of shaping us into the work ethic that we may or may not want to have, right? So, talk to me about your roots. Talk to me a little more about you. Where do you come from,
Yeah.
and what makes you so unique?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Mexico, Mexico City. For those that are from Mexico, I went to the Politécnico Boca Dos.
Nice.
That's the high school in Mexico, college for some. Yeah, I was born and raised in Mexico City. And then, my parents decided to move to the States when I was a teenager. First, my dad, then my mom, and then eventually my brother and I uh, were pretty much brought to the US. And, coming to a new country made me excited because I was going to be reunified with my parents, right? But a little scary because everything that I known,
Yeah.
was left behind. But I think that's like a word that you mentioned earlier, the ambitious, and, that was driving me, make me, adapt to the new culture, learn the language to make sure that I surrounded with and understand what was going on around me. And I've been here in North Carolina for many years at this point. I consider myself a Panthers fan at this point, based on the years that I've been here.
Yeah.
So yes, I have three siblings. I'm the oldest, and it's been definitely looking back, right? When I first moved to the US, I feel like it was worth it to make that transition because it has helped me to do things that, I don't think I was going to be able to do back home.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. You mentioned being a Panthers fan. I'm not sure if I would share that with the world. It's a hit or miss, man. This team lets us down every year after year. I was like, when's it gonna end? But I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful.
Yeah, last year was a good season, the best season in many years. Yeah, I'm hopeful too for the next to come.
I think so too. I think now that we have a half breed at the coach, I think he's Mexican, right? Mexican American, Canales,
It's an American,
if
yes.
I'm not mistaken. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of cool. Maybe he'll bring some of that Latin flavor in there and shape it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun though. But you've played soccer. I think we've talked about this before. You've played soccer before. You grew up playing, and I think one of your brothers played as well, right? Goalkeeper or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm the oldest of four, right? So I played soccer growing up. Being from Mexico, the biggest team in Mexico is America. So I'm an America fan. And growing up, the only sport that we know in Mexico is football, as we call it there. I wanted to be a football player growing up. I try out to few teams, but it didn't work out. And then moving to the US, I had the opportunity to play soccer in college, and that's how I was able to pretty much afford and finish my undergrad. Based on the scholarships that I received to play soccer. But yeah, my brother, he's actually in college now. He's the youngest. He's in Ohio. He's playing soccer there. He's a goalkeeper.
that's awesome.
Yeah, when I was prior going to college, I will always take him with me to my games on the Sunday league, and he just felt inspired by that, and he just wanted to follow the steps. So he's in college now.
That's awesome, man. I love that. There's so much there. There's so much culture. There's so much things that are rooted from your Mexican upbringing, obviously, and obviously the idea of pursuing the what we call it, quote unquote American dream. I think it's phenomenal that you guys were able to persevere, go to college, have an education, and have the opportunity that so many people have here that take for granted, which is really cool. Speaking of Sunday leagues, that is one of the probably toughest things you can do for any age, whether you're an adult or a teenager, going to a soccer league on a Sunday, whereas you're talking about Guatemaltecos, Mexicanos, Hondureños, Salvadoreños,
Yeah, sure.
Brasileños, all kind of people that are gathered playing the beautiful game of football. It's quite an interested way of learning the game because no matter what age you're playing those Sundays, you're gonna give it all 100%. You can be 16, you can be 60 for
Mhm.
those for that for those two 45 and a half your body's on the line and you're gonna fight, you're gonna bruise, and you're gonna go home and you're gonna feel like shit,
Yeah, yeah, and
right?
that's all it is, right? Because that's for a lot of Latinos, right? That's the only time that they have to enjoy themselves, right? Because during the week it's work, 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 and then Sunday league comes. It's like that's the only passion that we have, right? Play soccer and enjoy the game. So definitely is a space where we just give it all because we love the game and we enjoy the people that we play with, and we want to make sure that we show, especially if we have family, right? Watching, we want to make sure that our kids feel proud of, seeing their dad playing or brother playing. So I think that that's the stage for a lot of us to show, you know, we really are playing soccer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned que eres americanista, because if you would say Chivas, man, we would have had to like throw down or something because
I know, yeah,
yo
no,
soy
Chivas,
americanista.
Americanistas,
So
100%.
yeah, same here. So yeah, same here.
I
Same
actually,
here.
when we won the bicampeonato a couple years ago, I was, I'm a big fan, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy a ticket and fly to Mexico City, go watch the final, and then come back. So I flew to Mexico when we played Azul like 2 years to
Wow.
3 years ago. I flew Sunday morning. The game was gonna be in the afternoon. I flew Sunday morning, went to the stadium, got a ticket outside of the stadium the same day, and then I flew back to Charlotte on Tuesday just because I wanted to experience
Wow.
that. I wanted to see America play and win the bicampeonato.
That's awesome, man. I'm so glad you got to do that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like being in this country, the US, gave you that opportunity to be able to do that? Do you think you would have been able to do that if you still lived in Mexico?
I think that being closer will have allowed me to do that, right? But, after many years of living in Mexico, I'm not sure where I will be, right? Because, one of the reasons that I moved to the US is because I was going through a hard time around the time that I moved to the US. And if I will have stayed there, I'm not sure exactly, where I will be 15, 10 years from that day. So I think that,
Yeah.
I guess to answer your question, yes, moving to the US has allowed me to have that flexibility, to do that, to be able to make that decision and go watch the game. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, what I will be if I would have stayed there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting question, right? And obviously, there's no wrong answer because we all come from different parts of the world, and people like us, when we leave those countries and come here for the opportunity, it's hard to really think about what could have been, right? Because we know of those places because we grew in those places, we loved those places. What we had was what we needed because we didn't know anything else other than that. And once you have the opportunity to be here and be able to reflect, you know, it's quite a conundrum, right? Of like how to feel because you don't know how to feel because, like you said, well, you don't know what will happen 10, 15 years from that day. So but I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad you were able to have the chance to do so and go back. And you've gone back obviously many times now, and been able to explore your city where you're from, Mexico City, and I'm sure you've been to other parts of Mexico that are just as beautiful. So, what did moving to the U.S. teach you that Mexico couldn't teach you?
I think the perseverance. I feel like, I live in Mexico my teenage years. And at that point, I feel like I wasn't really caring about things. I was just going through the moment and enjoying the time. My parents were taking care of me. Everything, the little that I had was being provided to me, right? So I didn't really have that mentality of like, I need to do this, because otherwise I will not get it. I was, just going and enjoying the time with my friends, high school, middle school. So I think that the US has taught me, the perseverance, being perseverant, knowing that there is a lot of possibilities here, and no matter where you're coming from, what your background is, the opportunities are gonna be there. It's just a matter of you wanting to go get them. So I think that that's one of the things that I will say that this, being here in the US has taught me throughout the years.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess we'll flip the coin around and we'll ask the opposite question. What did Mexico give you that the US has not been able to?
Oof, I think, at this point, I've been here in the US longer than Mexico. And I always think back about my early years. And I think that Mexico gave me the foundation. I think that, it gave me the roots, right? My family, extended family is still there. And it's just beautiful to go back and, seeing family, seeing the house that you grew up in, those feelings, right? That you will never experience being here. The feelings of at 6 p.m. going to play soccer with your friends on the street, you will never do that here. The feeling of, we didn't have a car, traveling or commuting from one place to another for hours, you will not get that here, right? So here you have car, you get to into your car, you drive, you go from point A to point B. That's it, right? But there, it's just, and somehow I feel like the time there felt like it didn't. It was like we had 24 hours, but it just felt like longer for some reason. I don't know why, but I feel like yeah, it's something that every time I go back, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I
You
loved
know.
I mean, yeah, I loved it. That was I think I resonate and I feel the same way like you do, you know. I was brought here as a much younger person. I was only 5 when I was brought here. So for me, it's a little different. You know, my feelings and emotions from de mi país mexicano, it's a little different for me, obviously. But I still remember a lot of it, and I still remember what it was. You know, hearing you talk about that story and what it means to you brings back emotions for me as well, which is really cool. So for you as a teenager, you know, coming to the US, what hit you the hardest? Aside from the language barrier, you know, what do you feel like it hit you the hardest once you got here?
So I would say not being able to do everything I wanted to do because of my legal status at that point. I think that there are so many restrictions and things that you can do when you don't have the proper status. So I think that was one of the hardest things that really hit me for a while,
Yeah.
and sometimes it made me question, right, if it was the right decision. But I think that being with family really, helped me to overcome that and make me who I am now.
You said you know you struggle with that. Did you ever struggle with your identity? No, I know coming here. So obviously, you know, as a teenager, you already have a predisposition of what you believe and some of the roots that you've already grew from. You know, ser mexicano. But once you get here, you start learning the language, and you get to adjust and adapt to what the American life is now. Did you ever feel then, or even now, that your identity gets lost?
I don't think I felt that way back then. Maybe more recent, but I feel like back then I was just excited to be here, and I didn't really pay much attention to that. So I think that if anything, now that I have more time, I guess, to go through those situations, I feel like that might be the time where I think that, but I don't think really that has been an issue, to be honest. Is that something
Okay.
that you have felt or heard from others that has happened?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of different feelings for a lot of people. I think it depends on who you ask, and I think that's the lovely thing about humans is that we all have a story, we all have a way of you know conciliating things in our minds based on our background, our roots, our ideology, or our beliefs, whatever it is. That's what makes us all different, which is pretty cool, right? But yes, I think over the years, I know for me specifically, I was probably 16, 17 when I left my house. I was living in the States already. I was already having to work and help my mom because she's a single mother of 4. So for me, my identity started shifting at an early age because although I knew I was Mexican, although I spoke the language, although I look foreign, that kind of had to go to the wayside because we needed to provide food, shelter, things to live, even though we were here and surviving, not thriving, but surviving. My mom didn't have the means to, so therefore, as the only man in the family at the time, because my mom didn't have a husband, I had to step in and help, right? So for me, that identity kind of shifted because I didn't know where to fit in. I had to work, I had to leave school, dropped out of school for a few years to go help to pay the bills. And it wasn't until like my early, probably 1920, where I was like, I really started identifying with like, I need to go back to who I am. For so long, for the last, I got here at the age of 5, so the age of, let's say 20. So for 15 years, I assimilated, I fit into what was surrounding my surroundings. Every one of my friends were all Anglo American, African American. And although there was nothing wrong with that, there was no one else that looked like me, no one else that spoke like me, no one else who had a family like me.
Mhm.
So therefore, that sense of who I am got lost for so long because I got put into a box, fit in, and that's all I knew. And then by the time I got to be old enough to be out of the house and be on my own and kind of reflect on my life, I was like, well, I need to go back to who I am. And and I think more and more over the years, I've become more that version of myself. It's always been there. Obviously, like deep down, we know who we are. We know what feels right. But more so lately, I've felt more and more deeper into the true core of who I am as a Latino, as a Mexicano living in a country that I wasn't born in.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult to overcome, and I'm glad that you were able to realize that that's something that you needed to go back to gain that identity again.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah, I
I'm
feel
still
like
working on it. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. I'm working on it every day. We find the right people. I think, you know, I just got married last year with to my wife Giovanni, and she has definitely helped big time when it comes to helping me find my identity. Again, I know who I am, right? But being in the right place with the right people that brings
yeah,
the best of you and allows you to be yourself to the core without apology resonates with me. And for me, it's like I've always been that person. Where had that person? No, where have I been? So
yeah,
it's really cool to be able to do that. Yeah,
yeah. No, that's great, man. And again, congratulations on your marriage. It's exciting, man.
appreciate that. Yeah. What do you see now that you're you know yeah what do you see now that your younger self couldn't see? Because you were going through the motions, like you said, at the
Yeah.
time. What do you see now that you couldn't see?
I feel like, now I feel like I didn't see that I was able to overcome difficult times. Like I mentioned earlier, I try out soccer at different teams in Mexico, and playing Sunday leagues, playing during the week, people look at me and were like, "Man, you should reach out to, these teams because you have the quality to play professionally." And that was great, right? But then when the time came to show at the tryouts, because they were so intense, the practice were so intense, I felt like mentally I gave up pretty much. And there were so many opportunities that I wasn't able to be successful in those opportunities. So now moving to the US and, moving to a country where you don't know the language, your status is, you're not able to do things, right? And going through things, going over the extra mile to overcome those things, has taught me and shown me that that guy that was trying out to be a professional player had it in him. It's just he didn't know that he did. So I feel
Yeah,
like, looking back, I can see myself like, man, you know, I just didn't know how to get that out of myself. So, but I think that coming here helped me to realize that, helped me to going through the motions and going through these different situations where I learn, what I'm capable of.
yeah. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Do you feel like that there was a moment? I mean, I know you spoke about, after your second tryouts was so difficult for you. Do you feel there was a moment that shifted the mindset for where like I don't want to longer give up and I actually want to create habits that are gonna build a future for you down the road?
Yeah, being here in the US, knowing that I needed to change something for me to have a better, a more stable life, that's when I realized that, one, I need to go to school to learn the language, right? I think that immediately once I moved to the US, that hit me like, in order for me to have success, whatever that means, I need to learn the language to be able to understand what's going on, to be able to communicate. So I think that was the moment that I realized that I need to do that, right? And that the opportunities were there. But in order to do that, I needed to do something on my own as well. So I think that was the moment that I realized that I need to, step it up to do that.
Yeah,
So I think that
that's great.
different situations, you know, throughout my life here in the US has helped me understand that it's okay to go through difficult things because it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. You think of those meadows when you see those plants growing out in the middle of the highway, right? Where you have this concrete jungle on top of these, what used to be grass and trees, and now you have this little flower popping through to the concrete. It's like if something like that can survive under pressure, then then everything else that we face on a daily basis is minute compared to everything else. I think growth is great. Growth is inevitable. Growth is something that every human has to go through, whether you're in a relationship or at work, friendships, and anything you do in life. Growth is part of what life is, right? Because if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So growth is definitely a part of human existence, and not only physically, emotionally, mentally, right? A lot of that growth has to happen for us to be the best version of ourselves. When do you think about growth? Do you think growth is something that it's loud, is it quiet, or can there be a mixture of both, based on your
I
experience?
I think that is based on the person, I think. I think that you can definitely find growth quietly, right? And you can also find growth being loud. So I think that just it all depends with a mixture of things depending on the person, the environment, and what is the growth that you're looking for, right? Because you can uh, be seeking professional growth, you can be seeking personal growth, right? You can be seeking growth in a relationship. So I think that it all depends on those things for you to determine it's going to be loud or quiet.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's definitely room for both, right? Then depending on the circumstance and the person, like you said, for sure. So obviously, as you grow and you're learning these things and unlearning other things as well, it gives you flexibility and room to then find things that are passionate. Whether it's watching football with Charlotte FC or the Panthers that you love so much, or going back to Mexico, or different things in your life. What kind of passions do you have that are part of your core right now that you really enjoy in this season of life?
Yeah, so I think that I enjoy in my morning every morning. Right now, my alarm goes off at 5:30. I really enjoy my quiet time in the mornings. I have a routine that I follow every morning before the kids get up. I try to, you know, sit down for 20, 30 minutes in the quiet and, drinking my coffee just to, have that moment to reflect on the day ahead of me, on the things that I want to do. And that really is something that I enjoy. When I don't do it,
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm out of track, out of control. So I think that's something that I really enjoy, to be honest, having that moment in the morning to be able to face my day. I enjoy, and as you know, I enjoy photography. When I graduated college, my girlfriend at that time, now my wife, gave me a camera as a gift when I graduated college. I
Do you
had that
remember the
camera
camera?
for it's a Rebel. I still have a Rebel 3, Level
Okay.
13 Canon. I still have the camera, and I had it there for a long time. I took pictures every now and then, but then 3 years ago, I decided to make it more official, and created my own a space in social media to start taking pictures. Since then, every time I have the chance, I do photography on the side. I enjoy the architecture. I enjoy buildings. I enjoy the streets. So yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy traveling. Every time that I have a chance, I also make the opportunity to go somewhere. We try to go on a trip once or twice a year, and that just brings energy to my soul to keep going. So I will say those are some of the main things that I will say brings joy to my heart and to my soul to keep going.
Love that, man, because finding something that you're passionate about besides your family, that's obviously the obvious thing. It's
All right.
good for your soul, like you mentioned, having that intentional time, whether it's photography, whether it's playing pickup soccer, going to an FC match, a Panthers match, or your 20 minutes in the morning for yourself to reflect. It's important because it sets the tone for the rest of the day for you, right? Like you said, you don't feel quite right if it's not done. It's
Yeah.
it's it's it means a lot to me to hear you say that because I have routines as well, and I think most people that are successful, success doesn't mean money. That's not what I mean when I say success. Most people who are successful in their life, relationships, friendships, so forth and so forth, have a routine, have things that they're passionate about. Activity plays an important part of that because you have to think about when it comes to a relationship, you have two dynamics. You have your partner, and yes, you guys become one, but part of that process is like you have your things that you love so much, right? And without those things that you love, you lose that identity of who you are, right? And so part of that process is like keeping the identity that you love so much, things that are prioritizing to you because you love those things that fill your cup. And when your cup is full, you now are able to give to other people because you're overjoyed from all the things that you've been able to do for yourself, which is really cool.
Yeah, you definitely need to take care of yourself, right? And for you to take care of others, you have to start with you. So you definitely need to know what is it that brings you joy, what is it that you like. for you to do those things. Doesn't mean that you're gonna do that every day or that you're gonna do everything, right? Because time is, you know, we don't have a lot of time, and depending you're married, you have a girlfriend, kids, etc. You also have to make sure that you dedicate time to them, but at the same time, you have to take care of yourself and know exactly, priorities, right? What is it that you like to get that energy to keep going?
Yeah, you're right. I love that. You're right on the money, man. With with your photography, does photography give you emotional like rephrase that? Does photography give you emotionally, like does it give you like an escape or an expression? Why do you resonate so much to photography?
Yeah. So growing up, going to the different teams to try out, I felt like I had the opportunity to see professional soccer players side by like next to me, right? And at that time, I didn't have a camera, and I always wish I had a camera with me in Mexico. Then um, I was accepted to the architecture school in Mexico, but I didn't finish. So I have a passion for architecture and buildings. So now, one of the things that, one of the first things that I did when I moved to the US, get a camera. I bought a camera just to make sure that I had it with me wherever I went because I just didn't want to be the same person that I was in Mexico where like I wish I had a camera to take a picture of this. So I feel like that brings some sort of joy, to express my art, my passion, like I said, buildings, the streets, passion brings, I feel myself when I'm going to different neighborhoods to take pictures of, the neighborhoods, it just feels good. It just feels good. It just feels good to just feels relief and then posting those pictures online and it just feels good. So I don't even know how to express the feeling that I feel when I do photography, but I just feel something. They bring something to me that I enjoy, that I really enjoy.
I love that, man. That's great. I love that you're able to do that. So many people don't have. I don't want to say the means. So many people don't know how to find their passion. They don't know how to find the things that makes them that brings them joy, right? I think oftentimes we think as humans that our joy comes from other humans, and that's not accurately all the time, right? Yes, someone can do things that create some kind of idea, thoughts, or feelings in your mind, in your heart, in your head that bring joy to that circumstance. But at the end of the day, like you said earlier, it comes from you, right? It starts with you. You set the perspective, you set the tone for how you handle the day through things that you enjoy, which for you have many things, which is awesome.
Hmm.
You also mentioned, the traveling part. When it comes to the traveling, when you leave the country, when you leave the US to go travel, what happens to that routine that you're so used to that brings you joy? Does it make you more grateful? Are you more ambitious when you come back? Are you more grounded? What happens to you when you refuel?
Yeah, it helps me to gain perspective, to be honest, of how others live life. I haven't been to a lot of countries, but to the few that I have been, it has helped me to gain that perspective of how others find joy in life. So there might be things that I we take for granted here, but then seeing life in other places helps you realize how much you have, right?
Mhm.
That others don't have, and they wish that they have, and you don't enjoy, right? So I think that's the part that I enjoy about traveling, the perspective that I get from that, and also it helps me to resets to gain that resets and reminds me of why you know I'm doing what I'm doing. I think that sometimes we get so busy in our lives that it is hard for us to get out of our normal routine, that we may not see things that are going on, good or bad. So I think that just stepping out of that bubble and going outside of your normal routine helps me really to see, and feel refreshed when I come back from these trips.
Yeah, I love that very much. I think you're dead on, man. I think it's good to find those things. For a lot of people that can travel, they also need to find a way to reset and find those things that are going to be able to bring more joy to their life as well. So that's great that you're able to do that. So
Yeah.
with all these amazing accolades and resumes and titles and expectations and other beautiful things that you are. Who is Arturo at your core belief? If you sit there, like if you can sit in a dark room by yourself in the fetal position and like really think about deep of who Arturo is, like who are you at the core?
Arturo is a person that has learned things the hard way. Arturo is a person that it is always willing to help. I think that my heart is always to always open the door to someone that needs help. Sometimes the help may not be, something with physical, but it would be emotional. I think that my heart is always on that side where I want to help. One of the things that I did a couple years ago, or many years ago, I got my ESL degree or diploma from a community college. And after graduating, a few years after I graduated, I went back and, did like a little presentation to the students and just to give them encouragement about this is what you are now, but if you learn the language, this is what you can do, etc. And I did that a few times, to be honest, because I wanted to help in any way. So when you mentioned about doing the podcast, I told you that I was happy that you were doing this because there might be others too that want to hear what others have gone through, right? And they might be some sort of encouragement that they find in these conversations. So but again, I think I went out of the question. But Arturo is a person that is always willing to help, that has gone through very difficult time, but I'm thankful to the Lord for giving me the opportunity to be here and for pulled me through those situations to be the person I am.
Yeah, I love that very much, man. And you're definitely a great human being, and I'm thankful and honored to know you for sure. So if someone, well, not someone, for those who are listening right now, right, and they feel like they're in a transition period in their lives, in a transition season, like you've talked about, what would you tell them? What kind of advice can you give these people who are also in a transition season for their lives?
So I will tell them a few things. One, it is light at the end of the tunnel. Two, make sure that you ask for support because you cannot do it on your own, right? You need the support, whether it's at work, with the family. Find that support. Find someone that you can trust, that you can talk to express what you're going through, right? What you want to do, because that's just going to help you to get out of that. And don't give up. Be persistent, right? Come up with a routine. I know it is not easy, right? But I am a huge believer on consistency because I feel like consistency helps you to become or do what you want to do. At the beginning it's hard, but then after, a few times that you do the same routine, it becomes easier. So find that routine, right? Make sure that you stay consistent, right? And when you feel like you are falling apart, make sure that you reach out to the support that you have to keep going
Yeah.
and don't give up. There's always going to be that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. That's great. I love that. I think persistency, built, it's a key to a lot of things. Obviously, we hear from different people talk about what persistence does for them and having a routine, right? For like-minded people, which is great. That reminds me of a story of. Have you heard the story of the lighthouse?
I think so. Yep.
I'm sure that there's probably many of them, but I probably am gonna say it wrong. But there's a point where a lighthouse, you think about a lighthouse, it always sits there, right? It's always there, and there's boats who are driving, and you have a boat who, when he needs help, he finds the lighthouse, right? And there's other boats who feel like they can do on their own, and they continue to go and they crash because they don't want to be guided by this lighthouse, right? So it's similar to what you just spoke about. Like there's a reason that humans were created. There's a reason that we have different people. And there's like-minded people who are gonna be there for you. People like yourself. If I need help, I know that I can call you and like you be a resource. And vice versa. And it's people like that in our back pockets that we have. Maybe we don't think about them often because especially as men, we want to do things on our own. We're so strong headed. We want to be like, I'm the man. I got to do it myself. That finding that help, whether it's a help for something that you want to learn, whether it's a conversation through a friendship because you're going through some hard stuff in your life, whatever it is, I think finding that person or someone that you can go to, um, it's big because it allows you to not only give of yourself in that vulnerable space, but also allows you to grow. And now you're finding the lighthouse through different means. You don't have to be the lighthouse for everybody. You're going to be the lighthouse for many people, right? But you also need to be a boat sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely it. That's all it is, man. Uh,
Yeah.
so I
Is there
think that
anything else that I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I was recently watching a YouTube video, right, talking about resources. Also, there's always gonna be resources, free resources, whether it's online, whether it's at the library. There is so many resources that you can find to find that support. Right? So I think that's important too. That someone that is going through a difficult time to make sure that find those resources because those resources are there, and those are resources are for everything pretty much that can help you to overcome whatever you're going through. But recently, I was watching a video on YouTube. It's called the 5 a.m. So I totally recommend that. Definitely, if you're watching this, watch that. The 5 a.m. Secret. It tells you about a guy that was struggling and find someone and told him about what he did. And he did that for a period of time, and then he saw the difference. So totally recommend it. Um, Another thing that I'm doing more recently too, I read books. I recommend this book, The Third Door by Alex Banayan. A great book, to be honest, it has become one of my favorite ones. Free resource from the library. I got my membership or your card from the library, and you can get books for 2 months to be able to read those. Yeah, find those resources because they're there.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, at the end of the day, there's no excuses in this day and age with technology, with people at their fingertips, with libraries, with YouTube has enormous amounts of free videos you can learn. I've learned how to do things for my car through YouTube, right? Instead of paying $1,000 to a mechanic, I just do it for $100, right? So there's no excuse. It just goes back to what you said many times today. Having that alignment and having that purpose and finding the drive to find yourself growing and learning and having something set in stone from the moment you get up in the mornings to having that routine that's going to prepare you to the rest of the day is really important. It's great. Anything else you want to share with the audience today?
No, I just first want to thank you for this space, and I hope that this becomes a space for a lot of people to find that support, to find that encouragement, and to, relate. So I hope that what I have shared is something that can help someone, right? It may not help everybody, but at least someone might resonate with what I said and, can help that person in any way.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah. Again, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your reflections with us. I know it's tough for men to speak up, but I'm hoping that this conversation leads to many other things for you. Not only, in your relationship, your coworkers, friends, and obviously, in your journey that you continue to have in your life. And to everyone else who's listening, I'm always going to tell them at the end, you have to remember your story matters, right? No matter where you come from, your story matters. Your voice matters. And you're never going to be alone in this journey, right? So this has been life, lo nuestro, and everything else. Until next time.